Hey everybody, it's Professor Parish, and this is week 4 of our English 109 class. So as I'm recording this, hopefully you are working on the assignments for week 3 that are going to be due Sunday. For week 4, it is a little bit of a shorter week, which is good, but we do have some pretty important things that we're doing this week. So for week 4, you do have a discussion forum. It's technically midterm week, so we have a discussion forum, our thesis and outline for paper 2, and then the midterm exam. So I want to go ahead and talk about the week 4 overview. So the only thing as far as the overview to worry about this week is to look at chapter 6 in our textbook, which goes through pages 152 through 190. That seems like a lot of pages, but honestly, you can just skim through and you'll notice that most of those assignments are all just things in the textbook that are maybe sample assignments or example figures or drawings, stuff like that. It's not 40 pages of text, which is good. And then looking at chapter 12, which will be about compare and contrast, which I'm pretty excited about. I like that a lot. We'll talk about that here when we get to the guidelines. But it runs through pages 259 to 277. And so you really have this week's discussion forum, the 3 responses, your midterm, and the thesis and outline for paper 2. So let's go ahead and talk about the discussion forum. So the discussion forum for this week is talking about compare and contrast. And so there's this video that I want you all to watch. It's only about 9 minutes long. It's not crazy long at all, but it's about this phenomenon called ghostwriting. And I don't know if any of you all grew up in the 90s. I grew up in the 90s and there was a show called Ghostwriter. I don't know if any of you all remember that, but this is kind of something that's along the same lines. And so it's about ghostwriting, which is a pretty interesting concept that I'm kind of fascinated about. And so the questions on here for the discussion forum is 1, what do you think is the concept of ghostwriting? How do you think being a ghostwriter is different than a traditional author? And the video will talk about this, so you can draw from the video as well. 2, how are the roles of the ghostwriter similar to that of a traditional author? And you can explain your answer there. And then finally, would you be a ghostwriter yourself? Why or why not? And so those 3 questions I'd like you for you to answer in your discussion post. Also, you need to have 3 responses. Now remember, your 3 responses, they need to be pretty robust, right? Because these discussion forums are worth 50 points. So I'm looking for like each response to be 2 or 3 sentences. Maybe, you know, I don't like putting like a limit to them or like a word count, but I'm looking for something more than just, I agree with you. I want to know why. I want you to explain why. So if you've noticed in the discussion forums that you're losing points, chances are it is because either 1, there are spelling and grammar errors in your responses and posts. 2, you're not answering all the questions, or 3, you're not responding in depth enough to your peers, or it could be a combination of the 3. So that's just something to keep in mind as we're at the midpoint of the class, if you can believe it. So that's the discussion forum for this week. Next, I want to talk about the next thing is going to be the thesis and outline. So the thesis and outline, basically, we're going to look at the guidelines for our compare and contrast paper. I like compare and contrast. I think compare and contrast is easy because you're mainly writing about 2 things that have similarities to them, but that also have differences. And these paper topics can range wildly. I've seen lots of different compare and contrast papers that work really well. Probably some of my favorites. I actually have had multiple students write about this, but one girl's paper was really good. And she worked 2 part-time jobs. One was union and one was non-union. And so she explained the differences between union and non-union, which I thought was pretty cool. I liked that a lot. Another paper I read talked about the differences between like high school and college. That's a pretty common paper topic. Some papers talk about the differences between locations they've lived at, between 2 different things, maybe the difference between you could talk about the differences between an adaptation of one series versus another. You can do lots of different topics. You kind of are limitless as long as you are talking about these similarities and differences between 2 different things. And your paper has to have topics that have both similarities and differences. So they need to be somewhat similar, right? So that's kind of the main goal of this paper, is to compare and contrast. You're still doing 3 pages. You still have the same type of outline or setup. I will be looking at, you can use this outline as a base when you do your thesis and outline assignment. You can say, hey, my paper is going to be about comparing union and non-union jobs, and here's my outline. And then you can copy and paste this and fill it in as you need to. But that's what I'm going to be looking at for this thesis and outline, just to see what you're writing about, make sure the topic works. And then finally, we have our midterm exam. And so the midterm exam, I'm going to go ahead and I'm recording this before it's ready, so y'all will get to see the questions. But as you can see here, this will look a little bit different when you open it up. But the midterm questions, there's not a lot of questions to it, but it is worth a bit of points. So you'll notice that like this first question, number 1, what are the 3 most common purposes of writing according to chapter 1 in our textbook? It's worth 6 points. So each of those common purposes, I'm going to give you 2 points for listing them and defining them. Please make sure to read the question fully. So like, for example, let me find an example of it. Let me see. List and define the 5 writing techniques used in chapter 2 of our textbook. You'll note it's worth 10 points. If you just tell me the 5 writing techniques, you're only going to get 5 points. You have to also define them. So make sure that you read the question carefully, because I have a lot of students that will basically go through and they'll, like, for example, they'll say, oh, what are synonyms and example? Well, they'll give me a synonym, but then they won't give me an example of it. And then they only get half the points. So make sure that you don't do that. But there's not a lot of questions on here. It's mainly, I think there's 17 questions total. That's it. But it is worth 50 points. So a lot of these questions will have multiple points given to them. So I want to make sure that you get the right answer and that you get the most points possible, right? So all of these assignments for week 4 are going to be due Sunday, November 6th. This will unlock on October 23rd, so you'll have 2 weeks to work on it, which is plenty of time. But that'll be our midterm halfway point in the class, which is kind of crazy. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I know last week, week 3, was a really big week. There were lots of things due. But if it makes you feel better, if you scroll on down here, you will see that from here on out, it's really only 2 or 3 assignments. And that's it, right? So week 3 is the big week. That one is probably our busiest week of the semester. And after that, you only have 2 or 3 assignments. So it's not going to be too bad, right? If you've made it to midpoint, you can make it to the end of the semester. I have full confidence in you. But as always, if you have questions, please email me. I'm in my office, but oftentimes I have appointments with students or I'm out with the speech team. So if you have any questions, email me first, and we can always set up an appointment if you want to meet face-to-face. All right. So as always, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more for English 109. Bye.